Hello, everyone, and welcome to MCA Connect's webinar, How Manufacturers Leverage Microsoft Power Platform to Increase Efficiency. At MCA Connect, we're working with the leaders in the manufacturing industry, especially those who are focusing on building a modern manufacturing platform. These companies realize there's a cap on the amount of efficiencies that can be gained without modernization. The Power Platform is one of the more accessible and user-friendly tools we use to help these companies execute their strategic roadmap. Whether this is your first time learning about the Power Platform, or you're here to see a few of these new use cases, let us help you take this time today to envision your manufacturing platform of the future. Our agenda for today is pretty straightforward. After an introduction, we will move to the Power Platform overview that I mentioned. That way we can help build a base of understanding before we walk through a number of use cases, those all being manufacturing specific. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. We'll take some time at the end to address those, and then also talk about how you can work with MCA to start solving issues immediately and do so on a modern manufacturing platform. And with that, I'm happy to introduce to you our Director of Modern Data Platform, Jansen Davidson.
Hello, everybody. So my name, thanks, Mitch. Appreciate the intros. Jansen Davidson with MCA Connect. I am the Director of the Modern Data Platform. And I am going to walk us through, with real-time use cases with the Power Platform and how we're helping companies adopt to this, what we're calling the modern platform for manufacturing. So at our heart, we are helping companies improve business outcome using world-class processes built on Microsoft D365, Microsoft Cloud, using D365 technologies. And we want to make connections that count. That is what we are all about as a company. And as a company, we have three main areas of expertise. We have manufacturing strategy. So rather than just having the technical expertise, we also have the team here at MCA Connect that knows manufacturing, that knows the processes. We know the disciplines of things like lean manufacturing and process improvements. And we're able to take that and build a strategy with continuous improvement in mind and drive P&L results. And then there at the bottom under with implementation and management, Global Dynamics D365 implementation and integration so that we can deliver the technology that complements the strategy we laid out prior to. So we're always going to make sure that the technologies that we implement, the Microsoft technologies we implement, have the bigger strategy in mind. And finally, manufacturing intelligence. We are empowering people to Industry 4.0 capabilities using Microsoft Cloud so that we can help these manufacturing companies be more predictive and prescriptive rather than reactive. COVID has taught not only our own customers now, but our newer customers that you can't stay on Excel. You have to do things and get technologies in the cloud so that you can be in a position to be more predictive. So we're going to talk about the Power Platform. In many cases, the Power Platform is the stack and technology that we use to start the journey of adopting and adapting to the modern data platform. You've got Power BI here on the left and business analytics, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. This is where we visualize the data. We have the Power Apps, application development. This is where we can start building apps, whether they're mobile or desktop, to help users interact with the data. We have Power Automate, Microsoft's come out with, and we've been using extensively with our customers to automate some of the manual processes that have kept companies from being more process efficient. And then we have on the finally the Power Virtual Agents. We're not going to talk much about that, if any, today, but this is where companies can start to use and build bots in a workflow environment. So let's start with Power Apps. Microsoft, with the Power Platform, has made it more easy than ever for users to start getting into applications, start getting off paper-based process and get those over into apps. So we have this with the Power Platform, with Power Apps, an easy build, easy WYSIWYG tool, design editor, where you can build out mobile apps with a low-code or no-code experience. So right now, it's easier now than ever before, where we can, again, just take these, maybe they're Excel-based processes, and take what's used to be done manually and get them into an application without a bunch of custom code, updates, or even enhancements, or custom enhancements, or one-offs. Rather, getting all these applications in a central location where they can be easily published, saved, modified, and put out to the users. Companies now are using this technology to solve their own business problems sometimes, and to leverage, again, this platform where you can see here on the right these screens where I can easily see what this app might look like in this environment. And the other nice thing Microsoft has done is not only given you the tools for people that might not have the software development skills, but for those that do have those skills and might have their own code on some of this, they can incorporate some of that and extend that Power App even further. But what I wanted to center our discussion around today was actual real-world use cases. So what you're going to see in these following slides are either active projects or projects we've already completed with our own manufacturing customers. I think it's the use cases that you're going to see. I want to drive questions towards the end and help drive the conversation a little bit as we wrap up and leave time. I want you to feel free to answer any questions that you have. But here's a real world use case for manufacturing with maybe identifying process improvements or process efficiency gains. Is the shop floor traveler. This is a very common document that circulates around a manufacturing shop floor that goes around through its various stages. It's usually paper-based where you scan it. It tells an operator what job they should be working on, maybe the steps involved in their job, and they have to manually typically fill this out, initial it, date it, and then that has to be moved on to the next person where they scan it, and so that process continues. Imagine that in a Power App. And so this is something we're asked to do commonly, where this is just one of many examples where I can easily take what I'm doing on paper on the shop floor and maybe building a Canvas app to help drive efficiency. Let's start automating these things where once I scan it, the app comes up and I can go ahead and using that app and record that data. There's no more manual entry where I might be making mistakes. Maybe my writing is not neat. All of the app takes care of all of that. And an app like this can go ahead and make sure that data and the data integrity is in a database where it can be reported and analyzed. And it no longer requires maybe another person taking manual data and putting that in the next system. Here, finally, this image shows this is my hand, this is my phone, my app. After I went through the trouble of going ahead and taking a manual process, going in my Power App environment, building something out pretty quick, saving that app and publishing it so that I can go ahead and start using this in more of an application experience. Our second use case on the Power App is what we have completed for Toyota. So back to the strategy, and we're going to get more into that here in just a minute, where we start off with strategy and try to identify some things early on, do some due diligence. I took a trip to this plant, and I noticed right away with these 280 processes, they had basically a book for each process, and you're actually looking at the book from this manufacturing plant. So within each book was 5 to 7 pages to help the operators understand what tools they needed to use based on, the type of work they did, whether they were attaching a bumper, whether they were attaching a fender, didn't really matter. There was a book that had to be updated by the engineers and by somebody on the floor to go ahead and make sure that book was up to date. So in total, you could be looking at 1,250 pages and 3 to 4 weeks to print and walk down that floor and insert all the new documentation. So it was a very laborious process. Again, you had to not only get the information, but then go and print all this document out. So we went in and we said, hey, this is a real easy win. This looks, if we can go from going manual and all these paper-based processes to an app, you're going to see a lot of efficiencies. And manufacturing companies like Toyota, they're all about process improvement. These plants are encouraged to find ways to improve processes. In fact, they're measured and in many cases, supervisors are measured on the number of continuous improvement ideas they come out with to help, again, just drive that, that methodology and discipline around that. So here I'm just showing you a quick picture of what future state, I should say now current state, looks like, where we were able to get rid of all the 280 process books, all the updates to those pages, and there at the bottom, we're at 1 30-minute global update from when there's a change to those work instructions to when they get out onto a tablet. So we're going to change to Power Automate. We just covered Power Apps. Again, this is where the users interact with the data and giving them a new experience. And again, some of the use cases we've been personally involved with as a company to help make companies make that change. Now we're going to move to Power Automate. This is where we can begin to integrate business processes, okay, where we can automate workflows with the apps and various services. So the best use case is if I have a file that hits a database or I hit a file that hits SharePoint, rather than a bunch of Excel documents maybe going out to various people in an organization, and maybe they need that approval. And so they look at that Excel document, they approve it and move it on to the next person. Power Automate makes those kinds of steps and approvals very, very easy, where we can go ahead and use triggers to alert people when a new document hits. So we're going completely away from multiple versions of Excel or things like that going out, and we're just going ahead and automating that approval process, and we're streamlining that. And so again, like Power Apps, Microsoft has continued this theme of easy screen navigation and intuitive design to lay out what those processes and approvals look like. And again, there at the bottom, we're triggering actions. It can be, again, when a file hits SharePoint, when a file hits anywhere. That's just one example of many triggers that can happen. Power Automate can also help drive the application behavior in a Power App, so that if there are approvals or maybe escalations that have to happen with an app, a Power Automate process behind that might drive that. This is an application that MCA, this is our own IP. So we used Power Automate with all the buzz going around supply chain and all the issues we're hearing and seeing about. This has kept us very, very busy in our intelligent container tracking app. Again, we leverage Power App, we leverage Power Automate and Power BI to basically build out a real-time container tracking app. These dashboards refresh daily. They address customer inquiries and warranty and quality assurance issues in real time. So basically what we've been able to do with this IP is help customers see where their goods are at any point in time, rather than waiting for emails, rather than waiting for phone calls or things like that. We've built an app, again, with the Microsoft technology stack to help companies do that much more efficiently. So continuing on, we're still in Power Automate. I want to continue with an additional use case here. Again, this is a customer. This is very common. So what you're seeing here, and it's part of our engagement process. We typically look for we're going to have eventually an assessment of some kind, and what we're going to do is we're going to ask that user, that company, hey, tell us where you're at. What system or process do you currently have that you're trying to either automate, that you're trying to maybe improve, so that we can get a good idea of what those pain points are. Again, this makes the journey of getting to the modern data platform much easier, because we're able to let's get right to some use cases. And every company will have a use case, if not, a half a dozen. So here's a good one of an engineering change order request. This is a real use case that we worked with the company on, and basically this was where the salesperson was reaching out to engineering because a customer made a change, or they wanted to make a change, either to an order, maybe to a part. Maybe the customer had been ordering these parts before, but they wanted to, change the color. This was kind of the process that was involved, and I'm not going to go through all the detail, but you can see that they're using Excel here, or they were using Excel as a change order request engine. as an approval engine. And so you can see the various handoffs here in this document. And so this would be filled out. This would then have to go to a half a dozen people to get approved. If it didn't get approved, it had to start to the beginning. And so the process continued. Very, very difficult. And it got to a point where the customers were getting frustrated because of the length of time it was taking to get these things approved. So we worked with the client, and through our assessment and through our process, we were able to take that Excel-based process, even some of the pricing and the calculations going on behind it, and turn that into a Power App. This is what we call a model-driven app, but what you can see there at the top is now we have one place to go where everybody has to walk this approval through the same process. It's not multiple people going through multiple Excel documents anymore. Everybody logs in and they're all looking at the same information. They can see real time where any change order sits at any point of the process. So we've covered Power Apps, a couple use cases there. We covered Power Automate. We're going to go ahead and end here with Power BI. And so we're all familiar with Power BI. This is where we can make sense of the data. We can start to visualize the data. We can reduce the amount of time for data prepping, getting answers, and leverage, the data that you have and get it visual, getting people to report on it. And again, seeing so that we can start helping our customers, again, start being more proactive and not reactive. And Power BI is a powerful tool to do that, where we can start to see trends, our customers can see trends and act on those trends. And not only see the data, but act on that data as well. Act on what they're seeing, not just report on it, but do something with the information that they're seeing. But this does help remove the complexity of managing multiple analytic solutions, and everything is staying centralized. And one of the biggest takeaways and the biggest advantages when you look at this Power Platform, again, the bigger picture is helping manufacturers get into and adopt a modern data platform where we're getting these on-prem solutions. We're getting maybe on-prem legacy applications. We're getting Excel-based reporting, and we're getting that into the Microsoft cloud. Why? So that we can start to see where all of these connections are being made. We can start to centralize the data so that we can analyze that data and act on that data. And that the Power Platform, again, is one of many tools we use as a company to help manufacturing organizations make that journey. Now, I didn't have this in the earlier slide with Power Platform, but I do like to mention, because this is something that's often people lose sight of, and that is the data and where the data is going to be. I've been in low code and for a long time. I've been in manufacturing for a long time, and where I see people miss it a little bit is they get so caught up in the app itself or automating a process, which is great, but they lose sight of, well, where's that data going to go? We don't want it in Excel. So what options do we have? And this is where Microsoft has really kind of changed the game in the whole low code space, is they've offered a common data model with it. They've offered a database where this data can live and where it can be stored and where it can be reported on. It's called Dataverse, where all of this data, whether the data is coming from a Power App, whether it's coming from Power Automate or Power BI, it's all going to the same location. It's all inheriting the same structure. And again, why? Because this is where we're starting the journey. These manufacturing companies can easily start the journey to consolidate this data, get it where it needs to be, get it off Excel, get it off of, maybe some on-prem databases where there's no connectivity, and start getting this, again, centralized. And not only did Microsoft provide the low-code environments to build these apps, but again, they've given and provided the database backend to make this much more easy. They've kept that low-code theme all the way even through the database side and where this data is stored. Here's just a screenshot of my environment of the CDS or Dataverse now. And again, going back to what I said, back in the day when everybody was building custom apps, they were building, new tables in, SQL Management Studio or something like that. Here, Microsoft's provided in Dataverse an easy way for somebody like myself, who's not a database administrator, never has been, but to go ahead and start building out what my data might look like, the tables, and I can export this data, I can import data. You can see here I can export to the data lake. A lot of power, a lot of flexibility here, and also a lot of the governance is already in place as well. So that's another thing that we see lacking as people go down this path by themselves, is they lose sight of the governance, not only in the data side of things, but even in the apps themselves, or even in the Power BI reports. We're always hearing about people and companies that, they leverage something like Power BI, but over time they have hundreds of Power BI reports, and people lose sight of what report does what. Power Apps, people develop and deploy apps very, very quickly, and they lose sight of maybe who's using what app and what app is connected to what connector and things like that. So there's a whole lot of governance that goes into this as well that we help companies with. So I wanted to cover really quick how we engage as a company, because this is our differentiator. This is where what I would say definitely separates MCA Connect in conversations, because we are able to elevate the conversations we have with our customers and what we call the connected blueprint. What we want to do as a company before we get into technology discussions, first of all, we don't want to just throw technology at problems. I think we can all say that a lot of companies have done that, and it really hasn't gotten them really close to the finish line as they thought. So what we do is we want to do all of our homework first. And what we're going to do in week one is we're going to do an assessment and a discovery. Now, this is in the context of supply chain, because, again, we've heard so much about, but we're going to do some homework first. We're not going to say, we might see somebody come and say, I'm doing some pricing in Excel and I want to automate that. That's great. But what we might find in week one assessment, we might find that based on our assessment, there's actually other things that this company should be focused and worried about than maybe what they thought. So we're going to do an assessment alignment. We're going to do maybe a Gemble walk at the manufacturing site. We're going to do real-time analysis. We're going to meet and talk with subject matter experts at the customer site. And we're going to really get an understanding of how these companies work, how they make the parts they make, what their KPIs are, how are the executives compensated, right? We really want the full picture so that we really can go into week 2 and 3 with all the information, so that as we start making technology decisions, we're all aligned first and foremost on bigger goals. So week 2, we're going to do maybe some workshops. We could do all 4 of these workshops, but basically week 1 is going to tell us what workshops we do. Are we going to do 1, 2, 3, and 4? Maybe we're going to do all of them, but at least we're going to start to have some focus. And following those weeks 2 and 3, we're going to get into week 4, which is our outcomes. Okay, we did our homework. We did the workshops. Now what? Now we have something that we can work with and agree with on the customer on what the focuses actually should be. So we might have something like we're going to have a pick chart where after this connected blueprint, now we know where to focus. Okay, we've identified everything. Maybe we've got 17 or 19 items here, and we've started to categorize them. But now we have this larger list of what we noticed, what we saw, maybe some things that we think the company should focus on, prioritize them. Hey, in blue, out of everything we saw, these are what you really need to focus on. And 2, these are maybe the possibles, the challenge, and so forth. So again, this is very different than just kind of going in technology led. We're changing the conversations. We're elevating the conversations to make sure that we're aligned with the executives, and we're all in agreement as to what the true priorities need to be with some of these companies. So these are some more examples of some pick charts that we've had, some of the outputs that we've had coming out of our connected blueprint. So that's typically how we engage our customers, again, and using those use cases that I just shared I mean, those are common things that might come out of a connected blueprint, right? So let me, I think, just go through here. So with that, I'm going to pause. I wanted to make sure we left plenty of time for questions here. I want this to be interactive. We have plenty of time. So I'm happy to answer any questions on either Power Apps, what we've seen, the good, the bad, the ugly. So please feel free to ask questions in the chat. Mitch, do we have any so far?
We actually had some that came in prior to the webinar. Some people used the forum as an opportunity to submit some questions. So it seems like maybe somebody with some experience as what happens after the app is built, who actually maintains the app?
So in MCA's case, it can be one, there's a couple options. So we work with customers that, they have a pretty solid development team. They've made that business decision to have or build that team. We will build the app first. Maybe we'll build the first 5 with them, and then they get comfortable, and then they could go ahead and maintain it if they want, and then reach out to us. Others, we build it and we maintain it, and customers call us. Those are the folks that really they don't have a software development resource. They don't plan to really try to build a software development team. And we're happy to own that and manage that for the long term. The other thing I would add to that is, we also help companies deploy a best practice or a center of excellence and install a center of excellence or implement one, where we will train customers of, we'll install what's called the COE starter kit of the Power Platform, so customers can make sure that they manage these apps properly. Maybe one person manages them. They can see what apps are being used, how they're being used, who's using them, who's logging into them, and so forth. But in terms of who maintains it, it's up to the customer. But we as MCA, again, we've seen both sides, where we maintain it for them or they maintain it themselves and reach out to us when they need to.
All right, that's great. You actually covered the next question, but I'll ask it anyway in case there's any additional context. Are you able to train our team to develop and maintain the apps?
Yes, we are. Easy answer. Yes. What we'll typically do is when we engage, let's say it's mainly a Power App, we'll build under maybe a hackathon, proof of concept, workshop, whatever you want to call it. We'll build the first app together. So it's usually about a 1-week engagement. We build the app together with the client. It's usually on site if we can. We can do it remote, but the idea is for them to see how we do it, why we do it the way we do it, and basically and train them. And then we'll even add maybe some follow-up support hours, a bucket of hours, just in case something comes up. They have questions, they can come back. But yeah, the ultimate goal, if a customer does want to be self-sufficient, or they just want somebody to help them on that journey for the first few, we're happy to do that.
Fantastic. And the last one we had that came in prior to the webinar, seems like somebody who's already been using Power Apps a little bit, but they said we're having issues with getting people to use the apps that are built. Do we help with that?
Actually, we do. So one of the things we didn't really get into much with this presentation, and we're happy to provide follow-up. And I'm glad you brought it up, because that, and again, being somebody like myself, I've been in low code. The number one thing we see, and I always saw, was workforce adoption. And so, yes, we get victory in building the app. It looks great. We can show it to a few people. They like it. But what happens when you have to deploy that app to 50 people? How do you know that they're going to use it correctly? How do you know that they're going to use it at all? There's some folks, let's face it, they're tech adverse. They like pencil paper. So yes, MCA brings along our business transformation, workforce adoption discipline from the company, and we'll work with that client to not only build the app with our team, but make sure that the workers are using it the way it should be. But that again, I would say we could all absolutely cover in more detail if you have any questions after this webinar.
All right, fantastic. Well, that's the questions we have. It doesn't seem like any additional ones have come through the chat. So with that, I will go ahead and stop the recording.